Hi, good evening, and welcome to the City of Sharonville Council meeting. If everyone would please stand, we're going to have a moment of silent prayer, then followed by the pledge, and Mayor Hardman will be leading us in this tonight.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can be seated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Lippert?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mrs. Knight? Here. Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
And Mr. Lovett is absent with notice.
Approval of minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes this evening? Seeing none, those will be accepted as written and distributed. Reports and communication. Mayor Hardman.
It's happy if you would join me up front.
Love to.
Always a pleasure to have faces in our audience that we don't always see, and it usually means we're going to do something really good for somebody who's a part of the city of Sharonville. Danny, come on up. So this is Danny Lee, council, and anybody else who doesn't know him. He has been a member of our department for 12 years as of this past July. He started out as a patrol officer, and he was a field training officer during that period of time. Back in 2017, he was assigned to as a task force officer with the Hamilton County Heroin Task Force for 18 months, a very important duty to have, and I'm sure a very taxing one for the 18 months that you did that. So we truly appreciate it, and I think everybody in our community does as well. Coming out of that, and for a little bit over a year now, he's had a different responsibility with us as he has joined up with his partner, Jack, who is not with us tonight, it doesn't look like, so a member of the family, but he's close by, and serving with him as our K-9 officer, and it is my pleasure to introduce him, or at least as a sergeant tonight, as we swear him in. But before we do so, why don't you introduce us to your friends and family who are here tonight to celebrate with you?
Absolutely. That was my mom and my dad, Mark and Tracy Lee. It's my wife, Nicole Lee. My two children, Matthew and Madeline. My mother-in-law, Maria, and my father-in-law, Bill, and his son, my brother-in-law, Billy Westridge. Raymond, Mr. Hugentobler, we all know Raymond. Mr. Proust, thank you. Sergeant Taggart, thank you. Greg Tigmeyer, there, my best friend. He's at Evendale. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out.
You can't all do it.
Chief, thank you.
Your mistake, right? Indeed. All right. Well, tell you what, raise your right hand. Let's get you sworn in. Repeat after me. I, Daniel Lee.
I, Daniel Lee,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the state of Ohio
of the state of Ohio
and the city of Sharonville,
and the city of Sharonville,
and that I will honestly and faithfully
and that I will honestly and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of sergeant,
of the office of sergeant,
to which I have been appointed
to which I have been appointed
according to the law and to the best of my ability.
according to the law and to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Sergeant.
Thank you, sir.
He's already got, yeah, you can clap. So we have cloth badges now? Is that what I'm understanding? What's going on here?
Most of my uniforms are at Gulls, so I had to send them all down to get them all sewn together and everything. So my wife sewed one together for me. We didn't have all of it, but we got what we could
All's
together.
All is good. That just means you don't get to come up here and like poke him really hard. So, because I'm sure he's done something to deserve it. Because I know I do on a regular basis. But congratulations. We are very glad that to promote you to this role. I think everybody up here knows you pretty well from what you've been able to do for the city for the last 12 years. So what we haven't gotten to do for a while because of COVID, we're going to do here in a second. But before we do that, I know people are going to want to take pictures, so let's do pictures. Take that. Anyone else? We'll even find people to take them for you if you want. So Danny, now you need to make it down the line here because they all want to congratulate you.
I was so glad today to welcome back babies at Butler Tech without masks. It was like, yes, we can see their faces.
Danny, you working right now? I am not. Well, guess what? You're taking them all out to dinner.
Why would we not?
He was promoted. That's what it's for. I don't think any of us will mind if you all take off. So
You don't
you're
have to be
welcome
bored.
stay, but you don't have to.
Congratulations.
None of us will, like I said, he's taking you to dinner. So
Yeah, congratulations.
I wasn't kidding. So for the rest of my report tonight, we had a great turnout for our downtown streetscape plan discussion as we were starting. Maybe John's going to talk a little bit about this later, but thank you for those of you who were able to make it. It was great to see some of our business community down there and folks that are just interested in what's going on. There are some really neat ideas. There's some pretty out-of-the-box ideas as well that I think were presented. Those are available, and that information is available, and it is online. And I know that we are welcoming any comments that you or friends or anyone else you might see would like to share comments. We would love to hear them because it only makes it better. It also gives us the opportunity, like if we think there's a great idea that's getting some, negative feedback because it's a little different to think about, it gives us the idea of what do we need to address or what we need to share. I think there's one really big out-of-the-box idea that didn't get a whole lot of positive, feedback, but it is certainly something that is worth exploring, and that is basically giving us some more space on the square to do things by turning the entrance into the square area one way. So you can't come out, you can only go in, and then you'd have to go out through the post office or through Walnut Street, which gives a good deal of extra space to do things with that square. Whether or not it's something people want or we feel that's something we want to do, it's certainly something worth exploring. But I think that's probably the biggest out-of-the-box idea that existed that was really neat to see some of the possibilities down there. So hopefully those of you who saw it, or hopefully you've all seen it because it is available, are excited about those options that are there. Speaking of that, obviously funding needs to be in place to do any of those things that we might want to do, and that's going to entail looking at some 5-year capital investments. And so we are in the process. I expect that you'll be hearing from Jim in the next week or so with some ideas about dates to get together with council as well as our department heads, so that as we start up the budget season for 2022, we also start up our next round of 5-year strategic capital funding discussion. So we think that would be good to start off with a group meeting of all of elected and all of our department heads to kind of brainstorm some of the things you might have already been talking about, see if there are ideas that we haven't thought of and haven't talked about yet, and how we look at achieving some of the things we want to achieve. We were very successful with our last group of 5-year projects that are now completed and done. And so now it's time to look at our next group, including downtown and many other things. I know with regard to our recreation department, things that they're working on as well that would be included within that. That is what I have for this evening. Any questions or comments from me? Thank you.
We'll move on to our Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas, and we'll talk about executive session. We will do it after we let the residents be heard. So we're going to move that down to after residents desiring to be heard.
Thank you. In addition to the public open house for the downtown plan, just wanted to thank the fire department and police department, as well as the public for coordinating and attending the Touch a Truck event, as well as the police open house. I thought they were both extremely well done and well attended, so thank you for that. Talking about the executive session, in addition to the one that's on the agenda under 121.22G4, we are also requesting one under 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. And then going on to the legislation this evening, Ordinance 2021-50E concerns our Kemper Road resurfacing project. If you recall, this is a resurfacing project from Motel Road to Chester Road. We had 5 bidders. Bids were opened up last week. The low bid is Adlita, which came in just under the engineer's estimate. If you remember, the project was originally scoped to have partial curb replacement. That transitioned with some public works input to full curb replacement. And if you see how good the full curb is looking on Sharon Road, I think that was a good decision. So Stephanie's here to talk about any questions you may have regarding that project, as well as just to come up and give brief updates on the Sharon Road project and the Kemper Road sidewalk project as well, as any others you may have questions about.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here in person again for a change. So yeah, just Kemper resurfacing project. We were overall pleased with the bids that came back. So it was good to get low bids given the amount of inflation and what we've seen on other projects. So that was nice. As you can see, Sharon Road is progressing fine. Really not a lot of issues on that one to date, and haven't received any information about any overages or requests for change orders or anything on that project. So all is progressing well on Sharon Road. A Kemper sidewalk, we do have, currently we had a total count of 22 right of entries that we needed to get that project underway. To date, we have received 13 of those, so there are 9 still outstanding. We have 2 others that I've talked to on the phone, and they're agreeable to the project, and they've said they'll send them back in. Haven't received them yet, but so that gets us down to 7. 2 of those are really kind of critical to us. The grades, we need to really regrade their driveways, and there's really no way of working around them. So 2 of those we're gonna meet with those in the coming weeks and try to get those under control. The remainder of them, if we have to, we can work around them. We could revise the plans, and so that leaves about 5 of them that we think we could work around if we have to. So we're getting really close on that one, so hopefully we can get that underway soon. I think that's it. US 42 project, that one is still currently in design, but I'm progressing on that one as well. Any questions?
Mr. Wilson?
Yes. Of the remaining people that have not signed, how many of those, how many, first of all, have not signed yet? Say that again. I know you said it.
9 total.
Okay. How many of those have said that they will sign but have not signed yet?
2.
Okay, so we have 7.
7.
Of those 7, have we had anyone that said they will not sign?
There's really not, there might be, I think, one of them that has said they really don't want to sign it. I think of that one is really not critical at all. We can really work around that one. There's 2 of them that we've met with. Steve Bussum and I met with them, and then Paul and I and possibly Steve again are going to go meet with them again. They're really, like I said, the 2 that are important to us that we really can't get around. And their biggest issue is they were agreeable to the first project, and they, obviously they were getting paid as part of that project, and so, they're kind of disappointed that they're losing out on getting a payment for this project. So I think we've tried to explain that to them, but there are a couple of trees they're losing that are on their property, not in the right-of-way, which makes them kind of a unique situation. And so there is a possibility that maybe we'll consider, paying for those trees.
Okay, have you set a date for completion of getting everyone signed on? Just for that part of it.
I think the last time I talked to Steve, he was saying the end of August that we were going to try to sign on by the end of August.
Okay, so we should expect then 1st of September that everyone will be signed on then?
Yes, that's,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
All right, thanks. Anything else?
I think Mr. Wilson, I think they chose August 24th because that's the next law committee meeting. And so law committee could then take action. This came out of the last committee that we had on Wednesday with the Public Works people. And so that came out that we would give them a deadline. And after that, then we would get our attorney involved.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Ordinance 2021-51E is PACE financing related as it pertains to the Delta Marriott. Chris Jones, who does a lot of PACE work in this region, is here this evening to speak on this ordinance. It basically clarifies potential discrepancy in the Ohio Revised Code. But Chris, why don't you come up and talk about that in more detail?
Also, I'm glad to be here in person. It's really good. The PACE financing ordinance that is in front of you is related to the project on Chester Road, Delta Marriott, that's already been approved. And it was, approved for the assessment schedule that was put into play. And one of the things that we were able to do with regards to the Ohio PACE program that the city is a part of the Energy SID is that the Hamilton County Auditor's Office sets the tax collection fee of 3%, and so for these unique special assessments, 3% is a hefty weight on essentially what is a private special assessment to the property owner, and so we were able to arrange to where as the program we would oversee the actual collection at a nominal $500 per collection, which in this case, if my math was right, it's probably close to $3,000 per collection if the county would have collected it. And so, quite a bit of a savings to the property owner. So then the net of all this is that the ECID, the Energy CID legal counsel felt that there was a slight, cloudy, I refer to it as kind of a cloudiness with regards to the language if someone ever, contested the validity of the assessment the way it's being collected. And so this just simply, reconfirms the assessment for, really another 2-year period. So I would be back in front of you again, in 2 years. And that's really the short of it.
Any questions? We all good? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and then last piece, ordinance 2021-52E, Mark is going to talk about.
This is another opioid. So there's a number of different opioid suits spinoff. Again, it's an opioid legislation. The Attorney General and the Governor of Ohio have recommended the municipalities recommend going with this settlement. And according to this settlement, we would get somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000. It also says that you have to use these proceeds for opioid remediation, but they don't tell you what that is. So I leave that up to Scott and Ed Cunningham to figure out if and when we get the money, what we can spend it on, but that's all they tell you at this point. But this basically authorizes Jim to sign this agreement for the city of Sharonville, saying, yes, we recommend that we settle this suit and we get our share of it. That's what this is about.
Are there any questions?
One other thing they do say, if you don't use it for, what's that term again? Remediation, you have to publicize what you're using it for. So you can only use it for remediation, but if you don't, at least tell people what you're using it for. So apparently it's not a very well-structured thing, but we're just trying to get the money first. Then we'll figure out what we can spend on it. That's it.
All right, thank you.
That's it this evening.
Okay, we'll move on from my report this evening. I want to point out one very important thing. We're all on iPads tonight. We have gone as a council paperless for the most part, and that's to the thanks of Josh. So Josh, we wanted to say thank you. Getting all of these old dogs learning new tricks was very taxing, I'm sure, and I just want you to know we appreciate all your efforts, so thank you. Tonight, too, we are lucky that we have a new business owner with us tonight, so I'm going to ask her to come on up and talk a little bit about her dance studio, if she would, please. And we can all take dance classes at 8:30 after council meeting, I'm just saying.
Good evening. I am Charlotte Nicole Von Stein, otherwise known as Nikki. I have many aliases, but I'm not in trouble with the law. And excuse my attire tonight, but I'm working in the studio to get it up and running, so it is ready to go come September. This is my very first business that I've run. I've had many years of experience. I started dancing when I was 3 in areas around here in the tri-state area. Before following my husband into the Air Force, I graduated from Western Kentucky University with an emphasis, performing arts emphasis in dance. And then I worked with a couple of studios in the tri-state area before finally deciding that this is the time for me to open up a studio of my own. My husband, Eric, and I reside in Sharonville very happily with our 4 children. We've been a part of the Sharks, yay, for this year and 2019. And I am renting the property from Shannon Housley, who owns the Housley Institute on the corner right there next to PNC Bank, across from Already Cafe. There are 3 units, and I'm the very last unit before Blue Goose, excuse me, the home and then Blue Goose Cafe. So allow for students, I'm teaching, students from the age of 3 years old all the way up to, like I say, 333, because 3 is my favorite number, so I add the 333 to that. And yes, we do have adult classes for men and women.
See?
Yes, so you are all welcome to join, and you are welcome to have 2 left feet as well and no experience. So yes, it's just a fun time. They are combination classes for adults from 8:30 to 9:30 on Tuesday for women, and if the gentleman would like to show of interest, that will be on Monday from 8:30 to 9:30. Those are combination classes, which means you will learn ballet, tap, and jazz, and partake, if you'd like, in our recital at the end of the year. I'm working on that at the moment, hopefully to do business and work with SCAC to hold our recitals there. We do have classes that are called Dance With Me classes. If any of you have children, you understand how if our children tug on us to say, to play with me or dance with me or whatever it might be with me. So we have Dance With Me classes for adults and their children. Right now they are the 3 to 4 year olds to do Dance With Me classes, but I also extend welcome to any of the adults who want to do Dance With Me classes with their older children as well. We have many different levels, boys or girls combined in the classes. We have separate levels of forms of dance. So if you just want ballet, there are just ballet classes. If you just want tap, there are tap classes for your children. If they want to do all of the above, we have what's called combination classes, like I explained earlier, where you do multiple forms of art, and we also do acrobat. I look forward to expanding as the years go on. Because I am renting at the moment, I am looking forward to staying within Sharonville. We don't have this option here. I know it's all around us in other locations, but I thought that this would be a wonderful location and actually waited until a spot came available. And once I saw that spot, I had to jump on it. So with 4 children who are supporting my endeavors and my husband as well, we will be there Monday and Tuesday so far from 10 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. And then we'll see what takes us from there. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take questions, or I have brochures I'm happy to leave you if you're interested. We also have coupons going on right now for 15% off for your September tuition if you register before August 26th.
Can we get at least one brochure for our minutes, please?
Absolutely,
Thank
yes,
you.
most definitely.
Thank you.
I hope to bring, with dance studios, you have children who are hungry and families who are hungry and running, and I hope to bring more business to all the surrounding community businesses. And I've also spoke with many of them so far about promoting their businesses within my business, so that make sure that we're all on the same boat together.
Great. Well, welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll get you one of those flyers.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Stu.
And that's all I have for my report. We'll move on to our Clerk of Council, Ms. Buhite.
Thanks, no report.
Thank you. Law Director, Mr. Pete Meyer.
No report?
Okay. And tonight we will have our Community Development Director, Mr. John Creech.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. Before I get into the report, I actually want to introduce a new employee, or actually she's been here 6 months, but Jamie, come on up here. So Jamie Kreinler joined our office in February, and she replaced Sarah Dirks, who moved on to the Phoenix area. And Jamie actually worked for us in the summer of 2019, so she made a great impression, obviously. I'm trying to think, I did read your bio. Jamie's background is she has an MCP, Master of Community Planning from the University of Cincinnati, same degree I have. So we have that connection there. I spent some time in the Peace Corps in Morocco, worked with youth in that community, as well as arts organizations. And also, interestingly, Jamie's background is in performing arts, dance as well. So,
there you go.
yeah. But we are very pleased. We are very happy to have her. So, introduce Jamie.
Welcome. Yes.
Like I know most everyone here, but I'm happy to finally make a formal introduction and just looking forward to all of our projects and opportunity to work with the city of Sharonville. So thanks for having me. Guess I go around.
Thank you. Yes, you have to shake hands now. Sorry. She's been trained well so far, John. Hi. Now you can put a face with the name of the emails you always get.
Thank you. So, thank you for this opportunity to give our Community Development Department report for year 2020. Just get right into it. And this is basically just a brief snapshot of some high points of some things that occurred in our office that had a great impact. This is the same information we have on pretty much every report there. In 2020, there were 5 of us in the office. Sarah obviously left. All of our activities, each individual has a kind of a unique skill set. Jerry with the buildings, permitting, dealing with NIC, our third-party building permit contractor. Sarah dealt with all the planning and zoning, Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Commission. I kind of oversaw the office, deal with a lot of outside organizations. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Donna Hollingsworth, you all know, deals with code enforcement, property maintenance. And Gina, who has also, she actually left our office in early 2019, so we are getting close, I think, to filling her position. So throughout 2021, we've been down an individual, so we relied quite heavily on our UC co-ops. We had a couple of temporary employees in 2020. Max Lambert was a UC co-op. He was a great kid. Unfortunately, when we shut down, we had to, he went back home, and then later in the fall we had Arthur Schmidt, who really did a lot of field work and inspections. I'll get to that in the end of the report. So, of course, we deal with a lot of boards and commissions. Some of this will actually be changing as time goes on. We are updating the zoning code. So you see the Architectural Review Board. We really only met, I think, one time in 2020, so a lot of those responsibilities are going to be taken over by the Planning Commission in the future as the zoning code hopefully is updated. Deal with the Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Commission, and I'd also like to point out the membership in the 2030 Steering Committee, the comprehensive plan that was updated, and I'll talk about that too in just a moment. But a lot of the members that participated in that group were given the opportunity to come over and work on the zoning code update. So a number of those individuals have committed to that. 2020, we started out, we had a lot of remote meetings, and then we started meeting here in person in City Council. So that group has done a lot of reading in our zoning code. So we hope to have that wrapped up by the end of the year, actually. And that'll go to the Planning Commission and then ultimately City Council for approval. Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Commission. This is something Jamie and I deal with. This is what we do. In 2020, we had 31 cases, 9 meetings. I think only 1 meeting was canceled, and that was in April, I think, when everyone canceled those meetings because of the shutdown. And with each individual case, obviously, we send out letters. And I always say this, whenever we send out letters, that generates questions and comments that come back that we basically have to engage people and explain what is going on. So that's why I put that information up there, because we do get a lot of phone calls whenever we send out letters about whether it be a variance, conditional use, site plan, anything that people are doing on private property. Planning Commission, 2020, 34 cases, 10 meetings were held, and there were a little more projects, and we sent out about 349 letters. Get into the building permit function of our department. Just want to give you the highlights here from 2020. 18.7 million in commercial development, and that's valuation. That's what people put on their permit as, that's the value of the work that we're actually doing. So of that, we collected about $229,000 in building department fees, 345 permits, and then with that, 537 inspections. So a lot of that was Jerry, also Jerry Flick, as well as our contractor NIC. There were about 25,798 permit fees that were waived in 2020. Of course, we waive all those fees for city-sponsored events, economic development projects, anything to do with the Chamber of Commerce. There was actually quite a few city projects going on at that time. And 83 commercial electric permits. As you recall, we never dealt with that before. We took that over actually in 2020. Before previously another contractor did that, we brought that, we entered into a contract with NIC, and we actually do all the administrative part of it in our office. So for 2020, we did get 83 permits, and we actually collected $11,287 in revenue from permit fees. Residential development, $3.1 million total estimated work, $40,000 were collected in residential permit fees, 375 permits, 324 inspections, a lot smaller scale, obviously, and 64 residential electric permits. So the only thing before I move on, before we started doing the electric permits ourselves, we really had no idea what permits or what electric permits were going on in the city. We just got a monthly report of the number of permits and the number of inspections, but there were no addresses. So it's really good to know what's going on. So I wanted to just take a look and give you a sense of what the 10 largest building permits were in 2020. You're probably familiar with all of these projects. Some of them probably jump out at you. Dayton Freight up on Crescentville Road did a very large, it was a basically giant gravel lot. They improved the property, did a lot of drainage work, did some interior renovations of buildings. That was a $3.5 million project investment. The Great Oaks campus, various buildings, they did a number of improvements in 2020. That's about $1.4 million. And I kind of lumped these together, $1.3 million for various projects up in Summit Woods Park. Gorilla Glue did a lot of work in 2020, $1.1 million. SK Rigging on Rockfield Court did a small addition, $1 million. The Bank of America on Lebanon Road, that was a $1 million project, believe it or not. The Starbucks Coffee, the Anchor Development, as we call it, across from Starbucks, the buildings up there, that's just about $1 million, and that's just the buildings only, not including the work on the property. York Street Fresh Foods, that was a new business actually that came into the city, and the Caruso property on Houck Road. Usui, as well as General Mills. So there's a lot of work going on. It maybe not be work going outside of the property where you see it, but a lot of that is interior work, improvements within the building. So I also wanted to share this with you. I started in 2017, so I wanted to show you, just give you an idea of building permits, because there's a lot of talk about 2020 being, it was just a lot less work going on, a lot of permits or whatever. So I did want to point out 2017 seems really high, and it is. And that's because there was one permit that pushed that number way up, and that was Ford Motor Company. They did a $10 million project, and that was a $100,000 building permit. So that's why we have that spike. But in general, I think if you reduce that, you would see it's pretty consistent. And then if you look at 2020, there actually was a decrease. But you could see from that previous slide, there were a number of projects that were already set, they were already planned, so I think those moved forward. If we look at the numbers, the permit activity kind of slowed down over the summer, but then it started picking back up. But I just wanted to share that with you so you can get a sense of permit fees over time. And then I thought, well, let's look at this too, because we hear a lot on the news about, especially in 2020, everyone was staying home doing work on their homes or whatever. So we just pulled out the numbers and said, well, what about here? Yep, looks like that's what happened here. So we are on trend nationally, it looks like. So it really almost doubled, from 26,000 in 2019 to 40,000 in 2020. Some interesting projects we've worked on, and we were just talking about this, the city, we worked with Kleiner's consultants over 2020. We started off great. We had some in-person meetings, and then we had to go remote. But the end product we were very happy with. That was actually presented and approved here by City Council back in June. The comprehensive plan was also, we wrapped that up in September 8th, and we've actually used that in support of a grant application already. So that was good work on the city's part, so we can use that leverage for grant applications in the future. Other projects, I was just talking about this, the zoning ordinance, that started immediately right after we finished the comprehensive plan. That steering committee, they're meeting tirelessly every month in this room to review all the drafts of that, the changes to the zoning code. Another project that wrapped up in 2020, and a lot of credit to Sarah Dirks. She applied for this grant from Hamilton County, and they did the work for us on this project. So basically, we gave them some ideas of, hey, there's a bike path coming up in the future from Evendale that eventually wants to make its way to Sharon Woods Park. So it has to go through downtown Sharonville. So we asked them to just to get the conversation started, just give us some ideas of things, obstacles, things that are good, things that are bad, pros and cons. So they looked at a number of different routes, and you can see those on there. And I think a number of you probably attended some of those meetings in the final meeting. So they gave us this document that kind of gives us an evaluation of all those routes. So once we reach the point in time where we look at these very seriously, we'll be able to have some of the work done already so we can move forward on that. It was just kind of an evaluation study. We also worked with the Mill Creek Collaborative, and we were here earlier this year. We executed a new agreement for the Sharon Creek Collaborative because that was another group that was created because the state of Ohio awarded money to Great Parks of Hamilton County to make the purchase of the Norfolk Southern property that runs from Sharonville down to Evendale along Sharon Creek. It's shown there in yellow. So Jamie, Sarah, before, as well as Anna Ellerding, we meet, we kind of take turns attending the Mill Creek Collaborative meeting. So we're really engaged with that organization, and throughout 2020 they did a lot of work. We had a lot of meetings, and Michelle Gotchlich, who came here, was really spearheaded that, and she stayed on task, and we have a draft sales agreement with Norfolk Southern to purchase that property for Hamilton County Great Parks to purchase that property. Early spring, the Kemper Basin, as we call it, there at Mosteller and Kemper, that project was finished. It was basically cleaned up. There was a lot of debris that was in that basin, and it was kind of restored to its natural habitat. We also applied for an electric vehicle charging grant. That was submitted in September. As you know, we were awarded that grant. We're working now to implement it. Safe Routes to School, that plan, we wrapped it up right at the end of 2019. We did some final work on it in early 2020. I submitted it to ODOT. They gave us the final approval, and then we used that document to apply for a grant, and obviously we found we were awarded a grant for, I think it's 23 construction, so we're obviously happy with that. Code enforcement. This is interesting. For 2020, there were 609 total code enforcement cases, and just broken down there how property maintenance, zoning, high grass and weeds, and there were quite a few more in 2020 compared to 2019, which we thought was kind of strange because more people were, we thought were home. During that time, Public Works actually cut 15 of those properties. But I just want you to look at this chart here. So 2017, that's when I started, 268 total code enforcement cases. Then there was some transition, as you recall, going from 2017 to 2018, 244. And then Donna Hollingsworth started, and you know, it's been going up ever since. And this isn't just sitting there waiting on the call to come in. She's out proactive, you know, looking for violations. So, and they're not always the worst violations. I won't say that, but a lot of times, and I'll show you on the next slide, it's basically getting information about people doing work without a permit. We are notified of things like that from time to time. So that's reflected in those numbers too. So just want to share with you this. So Donna has been really good at reaching out with some other departments, with the fire department, with Mike Mathis. They're, in 2020, they started doing some quarterly hotel motel checks as a team so they could really address these issues, you know, comprehensively rather than one department. Using the intern in the vehicle, they actually picked up 480 signs stuck out in the public right-of-way. That's a lot. And oftentimes it seems like when you pull one up, maybe two are there the next day. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. The OOPS report tracking, that's what I was talking about. So we get notified whenever someone calls the Ohio Underground Protection Service. You know, someone wants to build something on their property. So we follow up and make sure people are aware that they need to get a building permit. In 2020, there were 17 property owners cited here to the Sharon Court. 9 of those cases were resolved in 2020, and there's always a lot of, you know, depending on, you know, extenuating circumstances, I'll say. 8 of those cases were continued on into 2021. And again, Donna works great with the police department addressing junk vehicles when those complaints. So oftentimes we get complaints about vehicles parked on the street, maybe with flat tires, expired license plates. So we actually refer those to the police department. So citizens don't have to call us and then we say, call the police department. We'll collect the information and just send them an email so they can address it. I think this is the last thing. We are members of the Hamilton County Stormwater District, as you are aware. So as part of that responsibility, every 2 years for stormwater basins and every 5 years for outfalls, we have to do periodic checks and inspections. There are 228 stormwater basins. Most of those are on commercial properties in the city. So we did inspections on all 228 of those. And for the outfalls, sometimes they're close together so you can do them at the same time. 65 of those, we sent out 27 letters for correction. Basically, clean out the garbage, the obstruction, mow the grass, depending on what it is, because we want those facilities to work as they were designed, because it has a tendency to reduce flooding. And then there are a number of underground detention basins on commercial properties. And because Sharonville has very little land to develop, we are seeing more and more whenever there's a development or redevelopment of a property, they put the stormwater detention facility underground. Obviously, we can't inspect it, but we make a point of sending letters to the owners reminding them maintenance and inspections on their part. So that's kind of 2020, and our department certainly thanks you, City Council, for your support. Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The work you do is great, and we love Donna. She got on it today. I sent her an email, and it was like that, so she's very good.
Thank you.
Now is an opportunity. If any of our residents wish to be heard this evening, please come up and give us your name and address.
Jerome Fry, 10509 Thornview Drive. Mainly, I'm still upset that the police aren't stopping the speeders coming up and down Thornby Drive. The other night, one guy, my estimation, was going at least 70. He didn't see the stop sign, and it slowed down about 3 houses past it. I don't know if he had a problem, because he sat there for about 10 minutes on the side of the road. The other thing is, I walk a lot at night. People tend to park their vehicles across the sidewalk. I assume that's a violation. I don't know, is that a violation? To park across the sidewalk?
I think it is.
An hour, I believe.
Yeah.
No, they're doing it overnight.
Yeah.
A number of places, not any one particular address. And I'm not seeing, like I said, I'm not seeing any police presence with the increased traffic from Glendale, Milford. I see trucks coming up and down the street, and I don't think they're making deliveries. If they are, I know that's legal. I see Lowe's go up and down the street. I see a number of box trucks. And then the other thing, I know my neighbor, he sees it too. We tell people to slow down. It doesn't do any good. We sat there one night, and people go up and down the street, race their engines different times of day, not just during the day. They do it at night too. And I assume it should be a quiet street. I don't know. I know you hear it from other areas, but it just doesn't seem to slow down or anything. I mean, for a while you had the people, there would be a guy sitting on Lemery Drive in the mornings during the busy time. I haven't seen that recently. In fact, I haven't seen many of your patrol cars at all this week.
Okay.
Okay?
We will talk to our police chief about that. I do know they are short-staffed.
I know, I understand
No
that.
excuses, but they are short-staffed, and they're all getting their vacations in and things like
Okay.
that, so they're working on things, but that's no
Well, then
excuse.
somebody told me that the other cities putting dummy cars out. That may or may not help. I don't know if you have cars sitting there. If people aren't working, you should have dummy cars available. Okay,
We
thank you.
can put Tank out there. I'll just have you out there with your little, Tank would be good.
I'll sit on my front porch and drink my coffee.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. We will address it with the police chief, okay? Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard this evening? Seeing no one else, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session per the Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G4, preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of employment, and also section 121.22G1 regarding employment. So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Cook. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson? Yes. Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight? Yes. And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mayor, who are we inviting in?
All elected, Mr. Lucas,
Noah?
Noah is the chief.
I see John, Chief Mackey's here. Okay. All right, if you could all go into executive session, please. We will be coming out and we executive session, please? So moved by Mr. Tankersley. I'm like, I hear so moved. Thank you, sir. Second by Mr. Lippard. And,
Roll.
yes, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley? Yes. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, we're not done.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight? Yes. Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Okay.
I got one, thank you. Okay, council committee meeting, or committees. Community Development, Mr. Tankersley.
No report.
Community Services, Mr. Lippard.
Briefly, we met last Wednesday. The Public Works went over their 5-year capital ideas, and I wish Glenn was here. He actually, I thought he brought a lot of fresh ideas to the committee, so that was great. One note as far as the Recreation Department, the issue of SYO came up and their need for volunteers. So anybody who's watching this out in cable land, you don't have to have a child, a grandchild, or anything like that affiliated with SYO in order to volunteer. They need volunteers. Our next meeting is going to be, coaching. Our next meeting is going to be September 1st, 4 o'clock, Administrative Conference Room. Thank you.
Thank you. Budget and Finance, Mr. Cook.
No report for budget and finance, but for project oversight, we met on July 20th. We reviewed the Wise Carver Main Street telephone pole relocation, and we discovered it will impact more properties than originally thought. We will ask for an 18-month extension. We also reviewed the letter that was going to be sent to the residents, and we did recommend for the project to proceed. In addition, we reviewed the Ford right turn lane, and right of entry was approved. Reviewed the Kemper Road sidewalk. We discussed that tonight, so we've got a more update than what we had information back then. And then we also reviewed the Houck Road project. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Honored citizens, Mrs. Knight.
Yes, tonight I'm going to honor everyone that was involved in Sharon Fest. They did a fantastic job, and it's something the citizens of Sharonville needed to get back to somewhat of a normal life.
Kind of felt good to be down there,
It
didn't it?
did.
It did.
Thank you. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
Will be on the 24th, 4 p.m. Administrative Conference Room. Again, this is a 5 Tuesday month, so next week there won't be any Law and Public Safety Committee meeting. So we'll skip to the 24th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rule suspension, or this is late delivery, am I correct? Since it's not on anything. Is there a motion to accept Resolution 2021 R10E as a late delivery? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mrs. Knight. Any discussion? All those in favor, yes? Yes. Those opposed, no, and we will accept that as late delivery. Rule suspension motion, first and only reading with immediate effectivity for ordinance 2021-50E, 2021-51E, 2021-52E, and Resolution 2021-R10E. Is there a motion? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mr. Lippert. Any discussion? All those in favor, yes? Yes. Those opposed, no, and that carries. We will go on to new business as we have no unfinished business.
Okay. First and only reading of Emergency Ordinance 2021-50E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract for the Kemper Road resurfacing project and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2021-50E? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert? Yes. Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency Ordinance 2021-50E has been approved. First and only reading of Emergency Ordinance 2021-51E, renewing the levying renewing the levying of special assessments for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Sharonville in cooperation with the Suburban Communities Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2021-51E? So moved by Mr. Cook, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Lippert.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mrs. Knight.
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2021-51E has been approved. First and only reading of emergency ordinance 2021-52E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to accept the material terms of the One Ohio subdivision settlement pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding and consistent with the terms of the July 21st, 2021 National Opioid Settlement, and to sign the One Ohio Subdivision Participation Form and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2021-52E? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Wilson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2021-52E has been approved. First and only reading of resolution 2021-R10E, rejecting fact-finding report in the matter of the City of Sharonville and International Association of Firefighters, Local 4498, case number 2019 MED 10-1229, issued by fact finder Howard D. Silver on August 5th, 2021, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2021-R10E? So moved by Mrs. Knight, second by Mr. Schmidt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor?
I just want to say that I'm encouraging you to pass this tonight. Part of that, the biggest reason why is because of a time deadline that we have. We must respond one way or the other by Thursday, and there are sufficient issues with this report that make it worth rejecting at this time that are, I think, detrimental not just to us as a city, but to our employees as well. So I would encourage you to pass this tonight. We continue to negotiate even after we got the fact finders report with the union, and we certainly hope that we're close to a resolution as a result of those negotiations. However, I would encourage you to take this step. I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure if it makes any difference or not, because as I've been sitting here thinking about this, I may or may not sign this tonight. I just have to talk with Noah a little bit about whether or not it makes sense to hold off on signing it until Thursday, because that it actually won't be in effect until I sign it. Just so you know, that's kind of what my intentions might be right now. I don't know if that's helpful or not, so that's something that we will converse. But in order for me to sign it, you have to pass it. So I encourage you to pass it this evening, and we certainly will keep you in the loop about what, if any, other continued negotiations are.
Okay, where are we at? Roll call?
Roll call.
Roll call, sorry. Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-R10E has been approved. And that's it for legislation.
That's all you got. Thank you very much, ma'am. Another opportunity for residents to be heard this evening? Mr. Fry, you good? Oh. Okay, we're almost done, sir. Other matters to be heard before council. Mr. Cunningham.
I want to piggyback on what Mrs. Knight spoke about Sharon Fest. I want to, thank the committee, Festivals of Sharonville. I want to thank everyone here for volunteering, and I want to thank our community for supporting it. And I want to thank them for supporting our nonprofits. That's why we were all there, and I think it was a record year in terms of what our nonprofits earned over the weekend, and I don't think it was even close. I also want to thank the police department being so short-staffed, they were able to have a presence there and keep us safe. And we did have a few incidents, which we normally don't, but we did. And so, you know, huge sacrifice. I mean, they were able to cover it, so thank you so much.
And it was very nice to see our police chief in his uniform doing, working side by side with patrol officers. That says a lot about his character and a lot about him. He had volunteered, and his wife volunteered to work the police booth that night, so it was very nice of them. All right, anyone else?
One quick question.
Yeah.
It's been brought up about the Arts and Crafts Show. Does anybody know anything about it?
It has not been talked about as far as Recreation's Arts and Crafts Show. I do not know about Kiwanis.
Okay. Okay.
I've not heard anything, so nothing's been
My
advertised.
assumption would be that's not happening this year, just
Yeah.
because that
Okay.
usually happens in September timeframe.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen questions asked about it, so that's why I figured I'd ask. Thank you.
Okay, we can check with Michael and see if he knows anything, but I'm gonna say the Kiwanis usually ran that. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? If not, is there a motion for adjournment? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Wilson. All those in favor, yes? Yes. Those opposed, no. And Mr. Fry, you can now go home, sir. Thank you.